Hey guys, I'm not wearing a V-neck, I promise. Today's video is titled, Are You Willing to Be Hated? And it hit me today about how important it is to be willing to be hated. We shouldn't want to be hated. Nobody wants to be hated, at least hopefully. If you want to be hated, something's wrong with you. However, if you're willing to be hated, it's a different story. You see, the willingness to be hated is very important for many reasons. We'll talk biblically first. Biblically, it's important to be willing to be hated because Jesus said that if you follow him, you'll be hated and you'll be persecuted. You may even be killed for his name's sake. Therefore, the very act of truly following Jesus means that you must be willing, at least, to be hated. So that's first and foremost. By definition, a disciple and a follower of Jesus must be willing to be hated. Are you willing to be hated? Being hated, nobody even in our culture, it's the opposite of what everyone wants. Everyone wants to be popular. Everyone wants to be liked. Everyone wants to be the center of attention. Nobody wants to be hated. And that's a good thing. We want to be accepted. However, like with following Jesus, and as a part of following Jesus, you're going to have to tell the truth. You're going to have to tell the truth to a sinful world. It may be your best friend. It may be a roommate or someone at the grocery store. You may be trying to stand up for the life of an unborn child to a mother who's contemplating abortion. If you tell that mother that's planning to abort her child that what she's thinking about doing is a bad idea, you very well may be hated by that person. You realize that. But there's a life at stake. That's an example of how the willingness of being hated is important. Say it's a friend and you have something you need to tell them, but you know it's going to hurt their feelings, but it's the truth. You have to realize that person may hate you when the conversation is over with. That's the reality. It's pretty deep when you think about it. But at the end of the day, who do we serve ultimately? If we're serving ourselves, okay, well, you know what? Try to be liked by everyone. Try it out. I tried it in high school and it didn't work out for many reasons. It didn't work out because I ended up doing drugs. I ended up smoking cigarettes. I ended up missing school and ultimately dropping out of school. Why? Because I was trying to please everyone. I wasn't willing to not fit in. You know, I wanted to do what made everyone like me. What was the end result? The end result of me trying to please everyone and trying to make everyone like me was I hated myself. I hated who I had become because I didn't stand up for the truth. I didn't even know the truth at that point in time. But I was not willing to be disliked or hated by anyone. Therefore, everyone that came around and everyone that influenced me I said, okay, well, if I have to do this thing to be liked, I guess I'll do it. And the problem is, many of us, myself included, after the high school years, don't drop that mentality. They just carry on, even subconsciously. When someone is doing something we know is wrong and we know is destructive to their health and overall well-being, and they're practically crying out for help, and instead of lovingly saying something to them that's the truth, that might hurt, we don't, because they might not like us for it. I got a feeling that Jesus didn't walk around on eggshells when he spoke to people. In fact, there's record of him not doing that and telling people exactly what they needed to hear when they needed to hear it. It's my encouragement to you to develop the willingness to be hated. Don't go out there seeking to be hated, because it's easy enough to be hated without trying, trust me. But to be willing to stand up for the truth and to be okay with being hated, because we don't always see the end result. We don't always see the impact that a conversation has on someone. I'm sure there's been a time in your life where you talked to someone, say when you were younger or whatever, you talked to someone and you left that conversation furious and you did not like what that person said. Could have been a parent, could have been a teacher, could have been anybody. You did not like what they said and you were ticked. And as the days and weeks and months go on, that conversation is like a penny in your shoe, as somebody told me once. And it's this thing that is just so annoying, you can't stand it. And finally one day, you come to grips and you come to terms with what that person was actually trying to tell you. And maybe it was weeks, months, or years later, but you realize they were right. They were totally right. And you just didn't have an ear to hear it at the time. But then it finally makes sense, and you finally heed the word that was spoken to you. Like I said, could be years later. So the conversations we have with people, the way that we speak to people, the opportunities we have in the grocery store or wherever else, it matters. People matter, and if you're going to get serious about it, I think you've got to be willing to be hated. And ironic, I'll give you one little thing from my life experience, and then I'll let you go. But I worked at the fire department for 10 years, full time. And when I first started out, I tried to do everything I could to make everyone like me, as I had done in years past. In my high school years and through trade school, whatever, I just didn't know any better. And in the first couple of years of me working at this fire department, I was hated by a lot of people. Truly, they did not like me. But what was ironic was that I really tried to make everyone like me. I just tried to do what I thought they would make them happy and make them like me. So ironically, like 5 or 6 years, I guess, finally into my walk with God for one, but my career in the fire department, a switch flipped, and I no longer cared what people thought. I cared what they thought in that I cared about people, but I didn't care what they thought in their regards to me. I just didn't. I just knew I needed to do what was right, whatever that was. I needed to say what was right if it needed to be said. And in that time, while I didn't care what other people thought of me, and I began to be more willing to be hated, people started liking me more. And it was the most crazy thing in the world. Even the people that hated me vehemently began to come around. And they're like, all of a sudden they're being nice. So I think that we don't always get what we think we're going to get. If we're trying to please everyone and we're trying to be accepted, that may be the very thing that we don't get. And in the opposite, if that's not what we're going for, if we're aiming to serve God, we'll get what we need. He'll provide. Anyway, it's my encouragement that we would all be more willing to be hated. And that sounds crazy. But when it comes, like I said, for standing up for God and for the truth, you have to be willing to be hated. And there's no way around it. That's just the way it is. Anyway, I hope this encourages you. I hope that if someone in your life hates you currently, that you would come to terms and realize either A, maybe it's your fault, maybe you were a jerk, maybe you need to repent, maybe you need to call them, maybe you need to make it right. Or maybe you were being honest with them. Maybe they didn't like what you had to say because you were being honest and truthful. And the best way that you could be loving and caring for them is to tell them that truth. And maybe that's why they hate you. And maybe you can come to terms with it. But don't rule out the you might have been a jerk part, because that's very possible as well. Anyway, I hope this blesses you. I hope it encourages you. I'm going to try to do more videos. I'm trying to think about others more and serve more however I can. And I think this is a good way to do it in some way. Anyway, if you think this has been a blessing, you like it, you think other people might like it, please subscribe and share, not because I want likes or subscriptions, but because if this is the truth and this is actually going to help believers in their walk and disciple others and be a better follower of Christ, then we need to keep it going. Anyway, y'all be good. Thank you for listening.